There we go, we're set up. Welcome back to the channel, guys, and as you can see, I'm sure, something a little bit different this week. Now, recently, let's say over the past month or so, I've been getting quite an increased amount of suggestions from you guys regarding my post-processing, my editing workflow. So firstly, thank you guys so much for that. You know, I like to see my YouTube channel, or this YouTube channel, as ours, not mine. This is a community that we have created together. And I like to think we can just chat about anything landscape photography. So yeah, cheers for all the comments below my videos. I really appreciate that. I really enjoy editing. You know, I love post-processing, sitting down on the desk with a cup of tea, which I've just realised is probably missing today, and getting stuck in. I find it quite therapeutic. I know a lot of photographers seem to see it as a little bit of a chore, which I kind of get. You know, ultimately I always want to be out with my camera, don't we all? But I think this is a fun side of landscape photography, and also very important as well. It's something I always say on my one-to-ones. Now, the ultimate goal of today's video is probably aimed at beginners more than anything. I don't like the thought of people feeling like post-processing is very intimidating. You know, I want to try and prove today that what I do with my photographs in Lightroom and Photoshop just a little bit, is very simple. But I'm proud with where I'm at with my post-processing, and I like the results that I get. So that's the goal. I want to share this simplicity with you, let's say, and I want it to feel a little bit more inclusive to people, you know. So hopefully I can do that. I've picked 2 photographs, all right, and what I'm going to do is edit them from start to finish. So my whole workflow. So it might be a little bit of a long-winded video. I'll probably say that now. But that's kind of the point. I want it to be like my videos are out on location, where it sort of feels like it's live, and I'm going through the editing workflow of these 2 particular photographs as if I'm doing them for the first time. I can't really remember how I edited these photographs. So we're going to start in Lightroom. I'll show you these 2 images now that I'm going to work with, and then we'll start editing them. So let's jump in. What I'm going to do to start with is show you the raw file, obviously, and then I'm going to show you my completed edit from whenever I edited the photograph, like a while back, you know, whenever it was. And then I'm going to sort of dismiss or delete the final edits, remove them from the situation, so I'm not kind of copying off them, if that makes sense. And then we can sort of start from fresh. Like I said, that's the whole point in what I'm trying to achieve today. So this is the first photograph, which I took at a place called Sunderland Point, which is very close to home. When did I take this? 30th of November, so that's, yeah, about a month ago. Oh, October. Wow, that's gone quick. That's like 6 or 7 weeks ago. Really like this photograph. This one's actually available as a print on my website, which to me is always a sure sign that I was happy with, you know, everything that throughout the whole workflow, including my editing that I did. So you'll see here, that's the raw file, and that was the final edit. So, I mean, you can tell they're completely different, aren't they? And then the next one we're going to work with is what I took in my last video, which was, most of the comments that I received on this video were regarding, sorry, a lot of the comments that I received on this video, not most of them, were regarding post-processing, and that it was kind of these comments that inspired me to make this video, really, so thanks again. So you see we've got 2 images. You'll remember on location that I said I was focus stacking this particular image. I think I said on location that I was taking 3 photographs to focus stack. When I got them into post-processing, I realised that I only needed 2. So this first one here, I'd say, is focused on the foreground. Yep, something like that. So that's fairly sharp. Whereas the second one, yeah, focused on the rock. And you see, look there, it's a little bit blurrier there. So if we compare them to, that one is much sharper than that one. Yep. And then final edit is, there we go. Boosh. Completely different. Mental. So if we look at that, compare them to, completely different, but I was really happy with that final edit. So, like I said, let's get rid of these bad boys. See you later. Right, so let's dismiss the one at the Yorkshire Dales for now and we'll work at the Sunderland Point one. Okay, so the first thing that I want to do with this photograph is bring up the shadows a little bit. Now, I will say at this stage that I don't necessarily work in order from top to bottom with either the basic panel here or any of them. My approach is very much just look at the photograph and you know, gauge what it is that I want to change from it. I just think that's more natural, you know. So in fact, before we get into any of the edits, I will say, of course, a lot of work was done out on location to make sure that this was right in terms of the composition, the lighting, the histogram you can see there is pretty much perfect. We haven't clipped the highlights, we've clipped the shadows a little bit somewhere, but not to the point where it's going to be a problem. Nicely balanced. We've got a lot of information in this raw file to work with. So of course that's really important, you know, that's the base. You know, there won't be any post-processing unless you're getting things right out with your camera, you know. So yeah, like I said, I don't necessarily go from top to bottom, and I'm looking at the photographs. So the first thing that I want to alter here is to increase those shadows, bring out that beautiful detail in those reeds and some of the sort of sand down here in the foreground. There we go. Now, one thing I'm noticing straight away about this particular image is, I'm sure you can agree with this, there's a little bit of a green tint going on, which I don't like. So I'm just going to use the global tint slider here and just introduce a little bit of sort of magenta. Something like that looks a little bit better. I don't want to do it too much because I don't want to end up making it a purple photograph, let's say. So that looks a little bit better. And like I said, in light of not going from top to bottom, I'm going to shoot down to the HSL colour sliders here. And again, this is just me. I'm looking at the photograph. What do I want to change about this photograph as I'm looking at it? And then I'll do it on the right hand side in these panels. For me, it's just the way I've always done it. It works so much better rather than going from top to bottom. So next thing here, I want to bring down the greens and green saturation a little bit, and maybe even the yellows. For me, I'm going to increase the shadows a little bit, sorry, a bit more. This is nice. We've got a nice lot of colour in these grasses, these reeds, but for me it's just a little bit too much. I don't know. It's just my opinion. So bringing down the greens isn't really doing much. So it's going to be the yellows. There we go. See how we're just bringing it down ever so slightly. Quick before and after on that. And I just prefer that. I think it looks a lot more natural. You know, I really don't like the oversaturated look in any of my own photographs, at least. So that's a pretty good start. Now I'm going to go back up here to the crop tool, the crop overlay, and I'm going to work with this a little bit. First thing I'm noticing is top and the bottom of the image are a little bit pointless, especially the bottom. I don't mind there being a lot of sky. I quite like that big sky effect. But let's say from here and then downwards of my cursor, it's just a little bit pointless. It doesn't really need to be there. I'd rather the image started a little bit higher up. So I'm going to put in a 4x5 crop or an 8x10. I'm going to increase it so the rule of thirds line is still on the horizon and beautiful plover scar lighthouse there. Might just bring it up a tiny bit more. I just don't like all of that. Let's say it's just an irrelevant area down here. It's not giving us anything. And for me, that's instantly better. It draws the eye into them reeds at the bottom. They become a lot more of an important part of this photograph. So quite like the way that looks. The horizon looks straight enough to me. I'm going to increase the temperature slightly. A little bit. That looks so much better already. Right, so what next? Sharpening, I usually don't really touch. Noise reduction, I sometimes just increase a tiny little bit. Again, if I'm going too fast for you guys, of course, you know, it goes without saying, you know, you can pause this video to your heart's content and sort of look at things I'm doing a little bit more in depth. So remove chromatic aberration, I always press this. Enable profile corrections, I never really press this. Just doesn't bother me. I'm going to increase a little bit of contrast, or introduce a little bit of contrast to the photograph. And again, as you can probably tell, these have all been global alterations to the image so far, meaning that any sliders that we alter on the right hand side is affecting the whole photograph. We'll get into some local adjustments in a second. So a quick before and after, and that's looking so much better already, I'm sure you'll agree, especially because we've brought up the highlights ever so slightly. Now I want to work on the sky a little bit, and I'd say this is one of my core approaches to most of my landscape photographs, as long as it's got sky in it. I like to darken down the sky basically and work on it a little bit. Now we're going to do some local adjustments. So I'm going to use the graduated filter tool here. I'm going to click and I'm going to hold shift as I'm dragging down, which straightens the horizon. There, whoa, we've messed it up. I'll just straighten that back up. I let go of it too early then. And then I'm going to press O on the keyboard, which anything in red is what's going to be affected here. So I like to, you know, I don't like to have an abrupt gradient like this. I think it looks quite unnatural. I like to stretch it out so we get a nice sort of merge of the gradient. Sometimes see even like that. So I don't mind that it's, you know, protruding into the actual land here a little bit as opposed to the sky. For me, again, that feels a lot more natural, you know. Just going to back up there, sorry, there we go. So then I press O on the keyboard again to get rid of the mask, and then I start making the edit. So I've double clicked on effect to reset anything in this panel here. First things first, I'm going to bring the exposure down a little bit. Let's bring that up slightly, there we go. Bring that down a little bit more. I don't want to do it like this, you know, to the point where it looks unnatural. It's just a case of bringing back some of them highlights. So as I reduce the exposure here, guys, keep your eyes on the histogram at the top right. You can see it just brings back some of them highlights a little bit, and we're introducing a little bit of detail into the sky, especially around these areas that were quite bright, you know. And that's it with that. I'm going to click done. I'm going to click on this tool here, which is the spot removal tool, just to see if I've got any dust spots up in the sky. I've got loads of dust on my sensor. This one doesn't look too bad actually. I think it's if I close my aperture up a little bit too much. I suppose that's probably one there, is it? Yeah, it can be littered with them if I'm shooting at anything anything above f14, you know. So that's pretty decent. The backward slash button on your keyboard will give you a before and after, and I'm absolutely mad for that. I'm always beforing and aftering, just to kind of keep up to date with the photograph, you know. Now, this is another thing that I like to do here. I'm going to use this tool here, which is the radial tool, and I'm going to introduce it in this area on the top right of the image, which you can hopefully see where the sun is coming in. And we're going to bring in this kind of effect where we increase the intensity subtly, we increase the vibrancy and maybe the saturation of the effect from the sun. So we can click on O again, just like on the graduated filter, and anything in red is where this effect will be applied. Click on O again to get rid of it so we can see what we're editing. Now I'm going to increase the temperature a little bit, and you can see already that looks so much better. And I would say, just going to get the mask up again to see where we're editing. I would say that's pretty much all I want to do. I'm going to bring it down a bit. I don't want it too intense. What are we going to go for? Something like 50. And we'll do a before and after on that. Look at that. It's fairly subtle, but it brings so much warmth, so much more warmth to the photograph. Click done on that. And a before and after. Crazy. So different, you know. And I'd say the main things here have been shadows, 100% is the main thing. Secondly, darkening down the sky a bit, and thirdly, adding that radial filter here just to bring the sun in a little bit. Now, one thing I'm finding quite distracting, probably not even worth mentioning this, see that little bit of sand there? I'm going to remove that with the spot removal. I'm going to click this visualize spots tool down here, so we're just working with the normal image. Get out of it. Yeah, that's a bit better. Click done on that. Guys, that's it for that first photograph. I must admit that's even simpler than I thought it was going to be honest. And I mean, I'm happy with that outcome, and it looks from memory fairly similar to the raw file that I showed you before, you know, where I probably spent a little bit more time on it. One thing I would say is I'm still not sure about the colours down here. Something doesn't feel quite right. They feel a bit, you know, if I get rid of that effect, they feel a bit sickly and unnatural. Perhaps you'll agree or disagree. So I'm going to bring the saturation down just of that area slightly. Maybe increase the tint a little bit to take it away from that green feel that it seems to have here. That's a bit better. So there, I'm going to leave it at that. Before and after, boosh, huge difference. Really simple edits. And for this particular photograph, we've not even used we've not even used Photoshop. All done in Lightroom. That's took me what, about 5 or 10 minutes? This video's probably going to be quite long, isn't it? Now onto this next one. So first things first, before we do anything here, let's do the focus stack. Very easy, as long as the automated feature in Photoshop is plain ball. Hold shift, click on both of these photographs together. In fact, I'll disregard this image that we just worked on out of the quick collection, so it is removed from our view. So holding shift, click on both of these photographs, right click, editing, open as layers in Photoshop. And now if we get into Photoshop, these should load in here. There we go, there's your dinner, top drawer. So you just wait for these two to load up here. And before we do the focus stack, we need to do the same again, as in clicking on them both. So holding shift or command, I think it'd be control on a Windows, and then clicking. So they're both selected. Edit, auto align layers. Auto, I like to use, and then OK. And now Photoshop is going to just align these photographs so they're stacked on top of each other perfectly. So you can see here we've got this white transparent area around here. That means that when I was out on location and took the two photographs, they were taken probably 2 seconds apart. I moved my camera ever so slightly. I mean, look at that, we're talking millimeters here. But it's important that you do that so we don't get any crazy effects. So we've still got them both selected. If you haven't, you can do it again. Select them again, hold shift. Then we're going to go on edit once again, and this is the focus stack now. We're going to go auto blend layers. We want to click on stack images. We're not doing a panorama, and I usually have these two tick boxes here ticked. Click on OK, and this is where Photoshop just does the work. You know, it's gonna understand where you've focused in each photograph, and it's going to stack them together accordingly. So you can see with these masks here at the bottom right, anything that is black is invisible. So you can see here it's made this area of this particular image invisible in the foreground, but visible in this image, which basically means that it's understood that this area in one of the images was in focus, whereas this area in the other image was in focus. So it's combined the two together. So we've got a nice even focus throughout front to back. Hope that makes sense. It's a bit confusing. And that's it. So now, for now at least, that's all I'm going to do in Photoshop. I'm going to open it back up in Lightroom by just clicking Command and S on my keyboard, which basically just saves the image back into Lightroom. I think it's opened it up there straight away. Yeah, you can see we've got 3 images here now, and I want to work with this one in the middle that says Edit, okay? And it's a TIFF rather than Nikon's RAW format. So I know that that's the one that's come from Photoshop. So obviously you can see there, I'll repeat, all we've done in Photoshop so far is the focus stack. And now, obviously we're back in Lightroom, and this again is just me starting my editing workflow with this photograph. So I did this image, this was only in my last video, so I probably only edited this about a week ago. So in all fairness, this one's probably still quite fresh in the memory. Now one thing else I noticed straight away about this image, it's quite, it's not very sharp over here. I mean, look at that, it's mad. And I think it was raining a little bit. There's quite a lot of chromatic aberration over there as well. So that's gonna be the first thing I do. Click that, see it gets rid of that. That's enough for me, don't need to mess about. I mean, I'm not too bothered about that. It doesn't look great. And I think I might have just had a bit of a few smears on my lens. Excuse me, but again, like I mentioned out on this location, if you saw this video, this was a bit of a scouting trip. I want to return to this location in the snow. But anyway, let's start the edit. First things first, this bit of grass down here, not a fan. Spot removal tool, make it a little bit bigger. I'm going to click here, I'm going to hold in shift so it does a line. Gone! See you later, little bit of grass. Sorted. Next thing I'm going to do is, I'm going to click done on that so we're not using the spot removal tool anymore. I am going to click on the spot removal tool again, but I'm going to go on visualize spots, which is like, look at this. So many more dust spots in this image compared to the last one. And yep, I'll repeat again, I need to clean my sensor on my Nikon D7200. But at the same time, it's never usually this bad, so it doesn't bother me that much. And Yeah, that'll do it. A couple more down here. There's your dinner. Click off visualize spots. And I'll click done. There we go. So that's our spot removal done. I quite like this photograph even just from the beginning. Now, one thing, I think I mentioned this on location as well, I wanted to desaturate this photograph, and I think that's going to add to the bleakness of this scene. So, you know, black and white, I guess, could be pretty cool as well, with a few edits, but I like the subtle colour, so I brought that down a bit, and instantly I think that looks so much better already. You know, I think if you increase the saturation, which a lot of beginners might be tempted to do, personally, there's no right or wrong here, I think that just looks sickly, and it doesn't suit the bleakness of this scene at all. So that's why I'm actually desaturating my colours here, and I'll do that quite a lot. Now, this is so important here, and again, we're talking about the sky. Look at my histogram up here at the top right. Wonderful. We haven't clicked any highlights, which means that we've actually got so much detail up in that sky, and I know that because I was there on location. It wasn't just white like this, there was a lot of detail. So it's going to be quite similar to the previous image. We're going to introduce the graduated filter, holding shift, bring it down. We're going to press O on the keyboard so we can see our mask. So for now, I'm just going to concentrate on this top section of the sky. So you can see where the mask is there, and I'm going to press O again so we can see what we're editing. I'm going to double click on effect here so that everything is reset, and here we go. So first things first, we're going to bring the exposure down, and you can see the drama that we're adding, you know, and then you can alter your filter, you know, once you've made the edit. The drama that we're bringing out here, I like to bring down the exposure when I'm doing this, and you see we start getting these areas of detail here, which I absolutely love. I think it looks beautiful. I think it suits the bleakness of this scene, I'll say again. It mirrors quite well with the patterns and textures that we've got in the bottom of this frame. And it's why I love British weather. We get these beautiful skies like this. Another thing I like to do to bring out the skies, as well as bringing down the exposure, is to actually increase dehaze. Not too much, but you see we start getting that detail there. Now, again, so important. You see we're starting to get a bit of colour here. Saturation down straight away. And I'm actually going, I think there's a bit too much texture going on, so I'm going to bring down dehaze a little bit. There, straight away, so much better. I'm going to do before and after. Look at that, honestly. Like, just a bit of a blank canvas, excuse me, a bit of a blank canvas of a sky up there to start with. Just a little bit of playing around with the graduated filter tool. So much better. To be fair, guys, I will say this image isn't far off already. I don't even think, I might bring down the global highlights a little bit just to enhance that sky. Shadows, no, I don't want to bring them up. I quite like my shadows in my images, especially look around here. I really like that. Let's have a little look if we're going to do anything else here. Let's have one thing that I'd suggest for you to do as well is trial and error. So what I was thinking of here is I'll play around with the temperature a little bit. I might make it a little bit cooler because, again, that will suit the bleakness of this scene. If I bring it up, you know, it's not a sunny day, it's not a summer's day, it doesn't make sense. If I bring it down slightly, there we go. So, I love it. And again, all that was trial and error. And it's just bringing a little bit of a cold, desolate feel to this photograph. So you see we're actually enhancing emotions of the photograph with our post-processing in the same way that we are when we're out on location, where we're trying to capture the emotion of a scene. This is just an elongation of what we're doing out on location. So before and after, again, mad for that. Again, I just love it. I think the temperature's a big deal here, where we've made it feel a lot colder. We've got rid of some of that warmth, I like that, and of course the sky, lovely. One thing that I'd like to do is get a radial filter, maybe bring down the exposure of this mountain a little bit, just to bring it into the frame more. So I'm going to double click on effect over here to reset. See how it's just got some older sort of custom presets here. I'm going to double click effect, something I always do, so that we're not, the radial filter is not affecting something as we're looking at it. I want to concentrate on the mask here, so I'm going to click on O on the keyboard again. And I only want this mask to affect the mountain, so we're going to use this awesome little tool here called Range Mask. Click on that and we're going to click on Luminance, which is light. I only want this mask to be on dark areas, not the highlights, not the sky. So I'm going to increase the shadows of the range, and you see there or thereabouts, the mask is now only on the mountain. It's actually not a very good example. I'm going to zoom in here, but that's going to be just about enough for me. I mean, it's not great. I'll probably bring it down away from the sky a little bit, but if you look, mask on and off, for me that's decent enough to be able to only select the mountain. It's much better than before we did the range mask, you know. And we're going to only make quite a subtle change here, so it doesn't matter. I just want to bring the exposure down. You know, if I did it too much, you can tell that the mask wasn't perfect. Just a little bit. There we go. Before and after. Just to bring out that mountain a little bit, you know. Darken it in the background. It creates a nice little bit of a contrast off there, you know. There we go. So we'll click done on that. I would say, guys, that is pretty much done. I'm going to right click on this image. I'm going to put edit in Photoshop. Edit a copy of Lightroom adjustments, edit. Say edit more. So that's going to open up in Photoshop now. And all I want to do here, actually I need to get rid of that one first. All I want to do here is do a little bit of subtle dodging and burning in Photoshop in the foreground. So I'm going to duplicate that layer. So we're working on a new layer by pressing Command and J. So you see we're on this layer 0 copy rather than working on, so it's non-destructive, you know. If I mess up on here, it's not the original image. So yeah, I'm going to get dodge and burning a little bit in the foreground. So I'm going to dodge first. We've got the range on highlights, and this is basically increasing the exposure of the highlights very subtly, okay. So let's just have a look. So you see, if I brush here and then undo it, look at the difference that's making. And just these brighter areas, I remember the video on location, I said this rock or limestone pavement and this area of limestone pavement all lead to this area here, which is great, you know. It leads the eye up to an area that's in between the mountain, in between this boulder, this erratic, which is what I set out on location, you know. So you can see here I've got my dodge range on highlights, because we only want to affect the highlights, and the exposure is very low because it's a subtle effect, you know. So this is the sort of thing that you probably won't even notice. So I'm just rubbing the brush in, really. So you can see I'm doing all these sections down here, and like I say, you probably won't even notice this until I do the before and after. So that area here, and then just this third rock, and again it's just leading us into that beautiful area down there. Get some of these. So there's a bit more drama going on in the foreground for starters, but your eyes are led by the highlights. So before and after, very subtle, but it's helping to lead us into that area here. So if you watch before and after, lovely. Now I'm going to right click on this tool again. I'm going to click on burn, and again exposure is very low, but this time we're only affecting the shadows. And this is going to help us get a little bit of contrast, and you'll know I mentioned before how much I love my shadows. We're just increasing this area here. Absolutely mint. Maybe this section here, darken it down a bit to give a little bit of drama. Probably him there. So before and after on all that dodging and burning, just again adding a little bit of drama to the photograph. Simple as that. Just like in the lighthouse image, I'm going to press Command or Control on a Windows and S, and that's going to save the image back into Lightroom, top drawer. And it's this one here, which is the edit, so it's not the Nikon RAW file. So there's our before and after. So that's before, after, before and after, and again from memory that looks similar enough to how my proper edit was when I did it last time, again when I probably had a little bit more time to do it, you know. So much better. Main things here, of course, first things first, is the fact that we did the focus stack, so it's going to be a bit sharper from front to back. Also getting rid of that warmth, you know. In this example here, the raw file, it's too warm for me, it doesn't suit the bleakness of this scene, and there's too much colour. Again on this one it's a little bit bluer, we've brought the colours down a little bit. I'd be tempted to do it even a little bit more, you know. Yeah, I prefer that even. And then of course, another huge thing is the sky. Look at the drama that we've got in the sky. So much better. So nice and simple. I'd say this has probably been a really long video, so thanks if you're still with me. And again, like I said before, you can pause away at your heart's content. And every single photograph is different, so it's not like this is a blueprint for me to edit every single one of my images, but I chose these two specifically because there's a lot of good examples of things that I do with a lot of my photographs. Desaturation, what I did to the sky in both of the images by reducing the exposure of a gradial filter, little bit of dodging and burning. Yeah, like focus stacking I do sometimes as well. So I felt like it was a nice broad, a couple of nice broad examples, you know. So anyway, I really hope that's helped. Please comment below if you'd like to see more of these post-processing videos. You know, I think it'd be quite cool to do them every now and again. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. If you have a quick second, please give the video a like if you're still watching. And I'll see you on the next adventure. Out.